Welcome to Ideas in Action, the official University of Southern California podcast. This show was recorded live on USC's campus.
So my name is Josh Inwald. I'm a second-year social psychology PhD student here at USC. I primarily work with Wendy, who's my main advisor. I also do a lot of collaborations with Joe Arvai. Both Wendy and Joe are other authors on this paper, which we're talking about today, risk perceptions of water safety and how they relate to climate change and severe weather. And I'm looking forward to the conversation.
And hi, my name is Wendy Bruin de Bruin. I'm Provost Professor of Public Policy, Psychology, and Behavioral Science at the University of Southern California. And I'm affiliated with the Sol Price School of Public Policy and the Psychology Department in Doornsife.
The first question I have for you is what brought about this research? What exactly is the problem you sought to solve?
So very high level, water safety and water security are major challenges for the entire world. Nowadays, about 2 billion people don't have consistent access to safe water. By 2050, that's projected to be 5 billion people. It's also one of the United Nations' major development goals, part of their Sustainable Development Goals program for the millennium. So we're interested, obviously, from that perspective, but as the relation to people's risk perceptions, well, we had access to this data set, courtesy of Wendy from the Lloyd's Register Foundation. Wendy, do you want to actually introduce that quickly, and then we can jump back to the water security bit?
Sure. So we received funding from the Lloyd's Register Foundation to analyze the Lloyd's Register Foundation World Risk Poll. And that is a survey that has been conducted in 142 countries around the world, where people were asked to report on their concerns about water safety, their concerns about climate change, and their concerns about severe weather, among other things. And so this survey is unique because most studies on public concerns about various risks tends to be conducted in the United States or Europe and in high-income countries. And now we have data from around the world.
And this is especially important in the context of water safety and water security. Well, quite frankly, most of the people around the world that are either currently at risk for water safety or are projected to be the regions with the greatest water challenges going forward. These are generally not places in Europe and the United States. There are some pockets where water safety is a big challenge, but really this is a global issue and it will most immediately and most pressingly affect people in developing nations. Therefore, it's kind of our research kind of fills the gap in the scientific literature. We know how people think about water and water safety issues quite a bit in the developed world, but we don't have that information for the global South. So with the Lloyd's Register Foundation Risk Poll, not only are we able to study the countries in the global South, but we're also able to directly draw comparisons between countries in the global North and the global South to see how water safety and water security is playing out on the global stage.
Right. And so we became interested in this particular research question about how water safety concerns are related to climate and weather concerns, because one of our co-authors is Mark Yagi, and he works for Waterkeeper Alliance. That's an organization that communicates about water safety around the world. And of course, they want to warn people that water safety around the world is being threatened by climate change. But our data or our analyses of the World Risk Poll suggest that around the world, people's concerns about water safety is much less strongly related to their concerns about climate change than to their concerns about severe weather. And what that suggests is that if you want to communicate with people about water safety being under threat as a result of climate change, it might actually be better to point to the link between water safety and severe weather than to the link between water safety and climate change, because it's easier to see how severe weather threatens your water safety than how an abstract concept such as climate change might threaten your water safety.
How did you go about this research? Is there anything you'd like to add there in terms of methodology?
I guess just one highlight of our study, obviously the main feature of our analysis is that we have access to this survey from the Lloyd's Register Foundation that covers 140 countries. But what we're also able to show is a very striking consistency in our findings. For example, we were able to segment the world by countries that are more economically developed versus less economically developed. We also did a parallel segmentation by countries that have more water infrastructure and better water safety compared to countries where those resources are still being developed. And no matter how you slice it, no matter what segment of the world that you're looking at, this pattern that severe weather concerns are more predictive of water safety concerns than are someone's climate change concerns. This applies to all groups of people. And we also are able to show these findings are pretty robust statistically. They work if you use survey weights versus if you don't use survey weights, if you dichotomize the variables one way versus analyze them in another. And basically, we have a bunch of convergent analyses that all suggest together that this is a really important theme that applies to people around the world. And that's definitely a benefit of our paper compared to existing studies currently in the literature.
Now, I have one more question for clarification for the listeners out there that could use some help clarifying the difference between the terms water security and water safety. Can you break those down?
Sure. So water security is how people kind of talk about this issue at the highest level. Basically, do people have access to water for personal needs, for economic needs? The difference between water safety and water security, water safety is just one aspect of, water safety is one aspect of water security. And that safety just deals with, is the water that you're drinking, is it free from harm? Are there no dangerous contaminants? Are you sure that it's been treated properly, that it hasn't picked up any, for example, lead from water pipes? That would be a direct threat to water safety. There's another aspect of water security, though, which concerns availability of water. That's kind of a bit distinct from the water safety component. We're only able to speak to the water safety component because that was what was directly asked in the Lloyd's Register Foundation World Risk Poll. However, we think that this also applies to broader water issues as well. Water security as a whole, not just this water safety component.
Great, thank you. Now, armed with the information that you found as a result of this study, what do you envision as far as the future of communicating climate risk? What are the real world applications of your work for the people whose job it is to help the public understand these challenging issues better?
We think our finding fits with the insight that climate change communications will be easier to understand and more compelling to people if they draw direct links to observable weather that is locally happening, so that people know that this is happening, they can see this is happening, and they can see how this may impact them directly.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and visit us at podcast.usc.edu.